Hello. Welcome to tonight's bedtime story by Lucid Tales. I hope your day has been peaceful and full of warmth. But whether it has been sunny skies for you or rolling thunderheads, it's time to relax now. Find somewhere comfortable, maybe your bed or a favorite armchair, and make sure you're ready for sleep. Take off your shoes if you can, and feel the freedom in your toes, the little loosening that means it's time for bed. Tonight's story is of giants, and the way the Isle of Portland came to be. In Dorset, in the south of England, in the old lands of the Durotriges, there are many secret grottos in ancient places. Near to Blandford Forum, there is an ancient mound known as Henning Hill. Now, many would tell you that this is a medieval rabbit warren, a place for farming conies to feed the townspeople. They would be right. But before that, it was a giant's playground. Deep in the dark mist of forever ago, back when the land was wild and the people brave, when the days were long and the nights full of stars, Dorset was a land of giants. Their mighty footsteps rattled the earth and shook trembling leaves from the trees as they strode through the rolling hills and valleys. The people in those times did not run in fear of these moving mountains always, however. In those days, before the ravages of man pushed their species to the brink, many giants were peaceable neighbours to their diminutive countrymen, and they lived in harmony. Of course, back then, back before hunger and fear and pain had driven them past the bounds of madness, the giants, like us, had their lives. Their daily rituals and chores, their tasks to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And like us, they loved to play. Now, a giant's favourite game is the game of stones, the hurling of great rocks up into the sky and across the land to see who has the strongest arm, the mightiest throw. And when the giants gather to throw stones, it is wise for the little humans nearby to gather too, to come in close where they can be seen, and no tumbling rock should fall from the sky and accidentally flatten them. On these days, the days of stones, the villagers came from around and about, bringing their children and picnics to watch the giants play their great games on their chosen grounds. Henning Hill was one of those ancient throwing grounds, and it is here that our story begins. Two giants had agreed to test their strength against one another, the Giant of Henning Hill and the Giant of Norden Hill. They were both as tall as trees and as stout as barrels, and the day promised great feats. The villagers arrived in twos and threes and families, and picked out safe spots to sit and watch the game. First, the Giant of Henning Hill, as was his right, searched the ground for a great stone worthy of his arm, and upon finding a rock 20 feet high by 20 feet wide by 20 feet deep, he bent down and hefted it up in his broad fist like it was no more than a pebble. He gestured for silence, for space, and drew back his arm in readiness. With a great shout, he stepped forward and launched the rock high, high and far and wide. It tumbled through the air, up and over in a great arc across the fair blue bowl of the sky, up and on and farther still, until it had disappeared quite over the horizon. The giants and the people of the village waited, and waited, and waited, until there was a mighty crack that shook the earth and sky, and the very ground trembled beneath their feet. The great stone landed far away on the heathlands of the misty Isle of Purbeck, balanced perfectly atop a tiny hill, where it became known as the Agglestone, the stone that moves. It was a magnificent throw, a wondrous throw. No one had ever seen its like. The villagers cheered and clapped, and the Giant of Henning Hill looked at his companion with a broad grin. But the Giant of Norden Hill merely smiled, and set to searching for her own great rock. In time she found an even bigger stone, brilliant white and huge beyond measure, too big surely to best the Henning Hill Giant's throw. But she stepped up onto the centre of Henning Hill, gripping the great rock in her broad hands, and she started spinning. She spun once, twice, 3 times, and when she released that stone it tumbled through the air, up and over in a great arc across the fair blue bowl of the sky, up and on and farther still, until it had disappeared quite over the horizon. The giants and the people of the village waited, and waited, and waited, and waited some more. Surely it must come down soon. At last, far in the distance and long out of sight, they heard a colossal splash and the crashing of waves breaking over cliffs. That great rock had flown far and farther than even the Agglestone, and had come to rest in the sea off the coast of Weymouth, where to this day it remains as the Isle of Portland. Well, the Henning Hill Giant was so mortified, so disappointed that his mighty throw had been bested so quickly and easily, that he shriveled up and died right there on the spot. And silence fell, quick and soft, for the death of a giant is no small thing. A hush descended over the villages, over the birds and the beasts and even the chattering jackdaws in the treetops. The quiet was dreadful and deep, almost like a spell in its tight hold. But at length, a small child, holding a smooth white pebble in her hand, stepped forward, walking carefully up to the fallen giant's still body, and she gently placed that smooth white pebble right in the centre of his forehead. After that, the silence was broken, and the villagers, adults and children, scrambled to find more stones, more smooth white pebbles, and with the Giant of Norden Hill's help, covered the Henning Hill Giant in a fine cairn fit for a king, burying him there on his hill so that all would remember him who happened to walk there in that wild place. It is said that even now the Henning Hill Giant slumbers there, under the stones and the soft rug of grass and earth that now covers his bones, and that if you go there on the right day, at the right time, just as the sun rises, you will see the earth of the hill move as he rolls over in his sleep of death. Good night. Sleep well, and I will see you soon for another bedtime story.